Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Squibbler Show. My name is Tejas, and today's topic is a little bit of a heavy one, so brace yourselves. Today we're going to be discussing the Black Lives Matter movement and racial representation in Harry Potter. And I couldn't think of anyone better than today's guest speaker to join with me today to discuss this very topic because he's one of the very few, if not the only, Black Wizards Unite content creator, and he does an amazing job on his channel along with his partner. So please join me in welcoming James from XpectoGO. Hi James, what's up?
Yo, what's good, Tejas, man? Long time no
It's been a while,
see.
it's been a while.
Yes. My name is James. I make content for Harry Potter Wizards Unite on our channel with my wife, Sue, on XpectoGO, bringing you guys the latest and greatest Wizards Unite content. All things in the world of Harry Potter Wizards Unite, blogs, gameplay tips, news, everything. So that's a little bit about us and what the channel does. So.
Today's topic is a little bit of a heavy one. It's a serious topic, and I feel that it's necessary to talk about these things because the more we talk about this, the more people get educated about it, and I feel
Yes.
it's important to have these conversations. We all know that the George Floyd incident happened about a month ago now, and that it felt like that was like the tip of the iceberg, and like there was a lot of buildup before that resulted in the mass, like the Black Lives
Yes.
Movement matter,
Yes.
the movement that's
Yes.
happening right now.
Yes.
So tell us something about these previous incidents that led up to this tipping point.
Um, when you brought up the question, the iceberg thing kind of just stuck with me a lot, like for a while. And it's such a great analogy because with an iceberg, you're only seeing the tip of it, but underneath is the mass. That's where it all started and everything. And so I compared that, using that analogy, the tip is the George Floyd, the Ahmaud Arbery, the Breonna Taylors, the Tamir Rices, the Philando Castile, those incidents. The underneath that water is a history of institutional or even systemic racism that has been in our culture, in the United States at least, for a long time since slavery, sad to say. And what's crazy is the water that is covering all of that is time. Time has been able to allow people to forget a lot of stuff that started and that still exists to this day because of systemic racism that was started way back when. Crazy to think my ancestors were brought over here in the United States. And so things that led to that culmination of this mass protest, this mass showing of unity, whether it's with the Black Lives Matter or just people across the world, Australia, France, everywhere you see people protesting. These incidents are not new. Will Smith said they're not new in the African American community. They're just being recorded. I mentioned the names earlier with Philando Castile. That's the one that was like, I cried for like a week after that one because he was pulled over, had a bad traffic light, had a tail light out, and he let the officer know, hey, I have a, legalized, registered weapon in my glove compartment. And he has his girlfriend and his daughter in the back, and he was shot right on Facebook Live. And that like shook a lot of people. And there's a lot of instances like this. Talked about Tamir Rice. This was back in 2014. The dude was 12 years old. He's playing with a toy gun in a park. He gets called on, police come out there. Literally moments, he gets gunned down. His sister gets arrested and pulled over and stuff. He doesn't get aid for another 10 minutes. Up till now, recently with Breonna Taylor, who's like still, she was at home for like, police came in there, had a warrant for arrest. It was the wrong house. her boyfriend got his gun. He was defending his home, registered gun, and was shot, and she was shot 8 times. And so that is the tip of the iceberg. That is what all this protest, this sadness, this anger, this frustration that has been leading up to this, all these incidents are within 5 years. And so it's just being recorded now. And I think it stems from a line of history that a lot of people do not want to talk about, which is systemic or institutional racism.
Why do you think that these incidents happen so often? I mean, sure, it's the systemic racism, but it's still happening even after George Floyd. We heard about
Yes.
Rayshard Brooks.
Yes.
That could have been completely avoidable, but it still happened. And I don't like saying this, but it's going to happen as well.
Yes, it is.
It sucks, but it is going to happen. So
it is.
Why haven't we learned yet? Why can't we make this situation better?
Learning is not learning from history. You're doomed to repeat yourself if you haven't learned from history. But the bigger problem that stems from the institutional or systemic racism is over-policing in the African American communities, particularly with policing and prisons. The Black community, African Americans in the United States, are about like 13 to 15% of the total population. But in prisons, we make up just about 40% of the total prison population. That's over policing. That's having a lot of police in these urban to ghetto areas where the African Americans reside. And sadly, they are poor neighborhoods with higher crime because they're poor communities. They are, even in people of colors, brown, Hispanic, there is higher policing because there's higher crime because they're poor communities, less opportunities in these types of places. And when prison reform is changed, because honestly, when I grew up, I was told not to trust the police. That's what it was. My father sat me down. His father before him sat him down, my grandfather. And there's been this tension between police and the African American community. And you can date it back to the war on drugs that started. That drugs was huge in the African American community, and they just started getting taken to jail, African American males particularly. Even way back to the Jim Crow era, segregation, civil rights movement. You see old videos in black and white of African Americans getting hosed by police, getting police attacked by them. There's always been this distrust, and it has not changed. It has not changed because my grandfather is telling me, my father's telling me, don't trust the police. And the police are telling each other, because racial profiling exists. It does. Quick story. Susanna, my wife, the other half of our channel, she was visiting me in my neighborhood where I grew up. She was pulled over. She was pulled over because not a lot of Caucasian or white, even though she's Italian, people come to our area unless they're buying drugs. That stuff happens and still happens. And this profiling that happens with African Americans, we're looked at as criminals a lot of times. And that's why most of us make up the prisons, because we're looked at as criminals, and we have poor communities. And it's so much that goes into it that it's sad. And I don't think it's going to change unless we, as a community, Blacks, whites, Hispanics, Latino, everybody comes together and acknowledge that there is a problem and we need to come together and fix it.
Okay, apart from getting together, talking about these issues, what are some concrete ways that we can we can have a better future for everyone, for people of color especially?
Great question. That is a great question. And I think it starts with ourselves. It starts with us wanting to learn and get out of our comfort zone. I'll be honest, I always feel uncomfortable talking about these topics because I feel like I'm not as educated as some of these other cats, but I have so much personal experience that I can talk about it. But at what point? So I think we have to get out of our comfort zone and just be like, I want to learn more about this. I want to fix this problem. You have to have a want to before you can do anything. If you have that want to, then you can go out and start learning, start educating yourselves. Topics that I've brought up: systemic racism, over policing, police reform, prison reform. A lot of these topics we can start looking at right now and seeing the history of these topics and how they can be changed. That's step one: informing, educating yourself, and wanting to do that. I think step two is your sphere of influence. I talked about this with a friend of mine. We all have people we influence, whether it's people at our job, at school, as a content creator like yourself. We all have ways of influencing others and bringing up topics that other people might not want to talk about. But we have this platform, we have, whether it's at your job, school, work, whatever, to bring up these topics and approach it. I have two little ones. This is something I'm going to talk about when they get older, when they're old enough. I have had the pleasure of talking at my old school, high school, which was a private school, and over 95% white. I had the privilege of going there and talking to them as a coach, and just sharing my experiences going to that school and dealing with racism and how it affected me and how I was able to overcome. So that's the second part: your influence, affecting those you are influencing. The third part is voting, going out, and not so much the presidential, the big ones that you see all the time on the news or in ads, but the local, the school boards, the city council meetings, the mayors. All of that affects your community and can affect your community immediately, more so than on a federal level. If you work on your local and state level, start participating in a lot of these programs that they have, these voting stuff. If you can do that, those are things you can do now if you are informed, if you are influencing your sphere of influence and going out and vote. Those are changes we can start making now and don't cost you anything.
I recently watched a video by Hassan Minaj. I'm not sure if you
Mm-hmm.
follow him. So he made a video recently about George Floyd, and he did say like one of the things that you can do is to change your local laws to make sure that you know like harass your councilman or something,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
make sure that these changes can be made.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a it's a powerful move that we should be doing. Or at least,
It's
I mean, I can't do it
huge.
as a non-American, but
Right. Right. It's
hopefully I can influence
huge.
someone.
It's huge, and not a lot of people talk about it because the news
Yeah,
outlets cover the presidential ones, and it
yeah,
makes sense, even the congressional ones and Senate races. But your local ones are far more important, dare I say,
mm,
than the bigger ones because they affect you and your area, your community, in that sphere of influence I talked about earlier. So
yeah.
it's definitely huge. It's definitely important. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't registered to vote, please do. Please do. It's never too late. And if you're young, just keep educating yourself so when it's your turn, you're able to vote based on what your community needs and how you can help your community.
You mentioned that you had a lot of personal experience, and your grandfather and your father also told you not to trust the police. Do you have like an incident that you would like to share with us, if you're comfortable?
Yeah, no, no. There's a couple. um, Not so okay. So like the first one that always stood out is relationships. I mentioned I went to a predominantly white private school, and I was there by the graces of another family, and because my family couldn't afford it. And one of these things, so I just talk about just racism in general. I was dating this very attractive female, and we were dating for like a couple of months, and it came to prom season. And we were going to like the same church and like hanging out places and stuff like that. And her family was okay, but like really not really into me as much. But hey, understood this was our daughter's boyfriend and who she was interested in. So that's like how far our relationship with at least with her parents was. Comes to prom. I asked her, she's like, yes, I can do it. And I find out a week later I can't take her. And I'm like, why? Why can't I? Like, why can't we go? We've been dating for over a couple of months. You know, we've been talking about this. Why is it this case? And I sat down with her parents, and they told me her grandparents, because this was our senior year, did not want pictures of their granddaughter with a Black man. Her grandparents. And so I'm like, well, that's your daughter. Like, you have final say. They just didn't want to deal with their grandparents and whatever anger might ensue with me taking their daughter out for the prom, especially as a senior prom. That still like irks me. This was one of the stories I shared with the school I talked about earlier when I had the pleasure of speaking there. Fast forward to college. I played football. I went to college for football on an athletic scholarship. I went to a technical school for graphic design. And usually after games, we have our games on Saturdays in the afternoons. If you're not familiar with American football, college football, usually they have their games on Saturdays. Pro have their games on Sundays. So our games are on Saturdays, usually in the afternoons. And then at night, hey, we're done with the game, whether we win or lose, we're going to go out in West Virginia, which is a pretty racist area in the first place. Literally during orientation, they told us there's places as African Americans we cannot go, or we would die, like literally. This was a conversation we had with the athletes because a lot of athletes were African Americans. So anyway, after the game, we go out. It was a place we usually hung out with and stuff, and a lot of other people, not just the players, but most of the school, which was predominantly white. We get out of the place, and we walk out. And there's a lot of people jaywalking, people, just crowds just crossing the street and everything. 4 cops come and like grab me and one of my roommates by force, grabs us by behind. I'm freaking out. I was like, what did I do? I have no idea. I get grabbed for jaywalking. Now, mind you, there's crowds. There are crowds. There's other people all leaving the same place, going to their cars and stuff. We get picked up. I'm freaking out. I had to sit down. I'm sure each of us, my friend Mingo Brown, he's from LA, each of us are surrounded by 4 cops. Wow. They go through our pockets, see what we have, why we were out here so late. I'm like, did you not just see us come from the party that we were at, the club we were at? Nothing. Didn't say a word. They had their backs towards me while they were doing what they were doing. It reminded me of the George Floyd incident because the 3 other cops, granted not all of them were white, had their backs towards George Floyd as he screamed, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." I'm thinking, why do they have their backs towards me? They're hiding what they're doing. They're hiding that I'm in cuffs on the ground. Mind you, I didn't say this. I was handcuffed for jaywalking. Me and Mingo. Now, all of this is running in my head because if I go to jail, that's going to mess up my scholarship. That's going to mess up my way to get through college. I'm freaking out. But I remember something my dad always told me. He said, stay calm and just say, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. That's all you can do. And just try to go with the flow and hope that nothing escalates. Because if you escalate the situation, then things can go bad. I've seen that in a lot of these situations. I'm not going to escalate it. I'm just going to be calm. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Just leaving here. Boom. Fortunate enough, 10 minutes go by. They say, okay, we get written up with a ticket for jaywalking. Have to pay it. But we head back to campus, very upset, very shaken. We just go to 7-Eleven, get a Slurpee, and just talk about it. So, yeah, that's, again, that's just one. That's just one.
Yeah.
But it happens. It happens.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I don't know how to react to this. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, we will steer away from some of these heavy topics just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're still talking about it, but
Yes.
in
Yeah.
context of Harry Potter. So the Harry Potter related um, racial stuff that we're going to talk about. The first thing is, okay, J.K. Rowling, I know is a very controversial topic right now, but
Yes.
we're
Yes.
not going to refer to the things that she said recently.
Right.
It's
Right.
just in general, she is the author
Mm.
who wrote Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Right.
Yeah. And she has received flack on the fact that she has underrepresented people of color in her stories, characters. But I did my research and I looked
Okay.
up UK's demographic in terms of ethnicity. And I
Mm-hmm.
found out that right now, 85 or so percent of the population is white, about 7% is Asian, and about
What?
3% is black. Yeah. And
Wow.
these numbers were worse in the 90s, which was when she
Yeah.
first made the
Yeah.
story. So statistically, numbers wise, she's not
Matches.
wrong. Yeah, it
Yeah.
matches. It's accurate.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But I think the issue isn't the number of characters who should have been of color,
Right.
but it's the number of characters who are of color who made an
Right.
impact on the story.
Right. Main characters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Representation matters. Representation matters a lot. Um, it is, I cannot tell you how big a deal it is to see anybody in a nonfiction or fictional setting, whether it's movies, books. It is so cool to see yourself because you automatically attach yourself to that person if they resemble you in any way, shape, or form, particularly with race. And as an African American, I won't speak to any other races or genders or anything like that, but as speaking for myself as an African American, and knowing the history of people not respecting us in the storytelling, in the mode of storytelling, it's huge when it happens. It's huge. It is like there's just like, yo, did you see that? Did you see her as this? Yo, she looked like me. She looked like my aunt. He looked like my dad. Like, yo, that is so cool. Yeah. Representation always matters. It always does and always will, particularly in minority groups. That being the case with JK, a lot of people write what they know. This is what she knows. Yes, Harry Potter is a fiction. Yes, came from her mind. But a lot of the stuff stems from her life. That is what she knows. And I get it. Yeah. I get it. I understand. But at the same time, it's a big deal. Speaking for myself, it's a big deal when I see somebody. I'll use a reference. There's a Fantastic Four movie that came out back a couple of years ago. Did not do well, but there was controversy with Michael B. Jordan being casted as the Human Torch because traditionally, when these characters were created by Stan Lee back in the 1950s, even 60s, whatever, they were white. So this casting was huge, but I always remember, because I'm an artist as well, art is subjective. When somebody takes a original story and twist it, that's what retellings are. You can change a lot with what you do. So just casting an African American as the Human Torch or casting Hermione on the Cursed Child, you can do that creatively. You can do that. You have the power. That's what's so cool about art. So I understand it, and I understand her reasons for why it was not so prevalent as far as people of color being main characters in Harry Potter. At the same time, if I ever saw it, that's why I love Kingsley so much. If I ever saw it, I'm like, let's go Kingsley. Oh my gosh, love him. So it's a big deal. Representation is a big deal.
Right. You mentioned Hermione being cast as Black in The Cursed Child.
Yeah.
That
That was big.
that was big, and
Yeah.
I was very happy that they cast someone of color for such a big role.
Yes.
But it still received a lot of
backlash.
And either it could be because people didn't want her to be Black, or when I was doing my research on this topic, I realized some of them who had an issue with this was because JK said in some interview that she didn't write Hermione as white specifically.
Yes, I saw that.
But
yes,
she has the power to, on like the book covers, when someone illustrates Hermione, or when Hermione was first cast as Emma Watson way back.
Yes,
You could have said, "No, I've written Hermione as Black or Asian or whatever."
Yeah.
So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. Love the casting. I'm with you. Love the casting. And the actress actually is a great actress. Broadway doing theater stuff. She has her acting chops and can do it well. She kills it in regards to acting. That being said, I know we're not going to reference JK in the recent topics she's been controversial about. But knowing that JK, I break it down into two things. She either did it because she wanted to check a box. And what I mean by that is, same with Dumbledore and Grindelwald's relationship.
Yep.
Okay, the LGBTQ community is like, just say it. Are they or aren't they? Just put it out there. Just put it in the book in writing. Are they or aren't they? Don't tease around it. Don't play around it.
Right.
Especially as of late, the casting makes sense, but at the same time, why wasn't this the case when the movies came out? Like you said, in the book covers, none of that has been. It is as of late, she's including a lot of POCs and a lot of LGBTQ representation, at least in her little bubble.
Yep.
And so I think she might be just checking the box. The second one could just be, I'm creative. I never did say a race or anything. And this is my LP. This is my property. I want to cast an African-American female as Hermione, who is one of the best characters, if not probably the best character in the book.
Right.
And how big a deal that would be. That's her prerogative. That's her prerogative as a creator, as the person who created this world. And if she wanted to do that for that reason, I cannot knock it. But there's a couple of ways you can look at it. And either way, if people are represented, I'm good. It's a step forward.
Yeah, it's a nice way to put it. It's important to look at both sides of the coin, or if it's not two sides, multiple sides of the situation.
Right. Cube. Yeah.
So yeah, it is. Let's talk about Cho Chang. I'm not sure if do you know the controversy that surrounds Cho Chang?
Okay, so I had to look this up because when you got the questions, I was like, wait, what? This is a thing?
I was surprised as well. Yeah.
So I don't know what to say about that. Because it didn't register until I was brought up.
Yeah.
Because like with anything, a lot of people are getting flack for doing blackface and stuff as of late. It didn't register back then until now. That I thought I was just being funny. No, you're hurting people. The naming, using that name, especially its historical context in the Asian community. Now, that makes sense for her to be getting flack now. That makes a lot of sense. Back then, we really didn't think too much of it. We were still kind of, I don't want to say racist back then, but we were still letting things slide a lot in regards to things like that. But now with everybody being more vocal and being on point and calling things out when things are wrong, that makes sense. And this controversy makes a lot of sense. So that's what I think. Again, I'm not a professional on any of that topic, but just from my reading, engaging the comments in regards to this topic, there's something wrong with that. Now, there's something wrong with that now.
I'm an Asian, and I feel like maybe I have a say in Asian characters in Harry Potter, to a certain extent, obviously. Sure, the naming is one thing, but what I would say they don't really like about Cho Chang is that she was portrayed as this exotic character that Harry has a love interest for a short while. And then when she turns out to be this sad, weepy character after Cedric's death, then he turns to someone else who's much more stronger and happens to be white, Ginny. So that was what I think a lot of people had an issue with.
It's a great perspective.
Yeah.
That's a great perspective. Because if you have representation, it doesn't matter if you don't do anything with it, if it's not strongly represented in the story. That's a great perspective. Yeah, I can see that.
And one more thing about, like, we can talk about the Patil twins, Parvati and Padma Patil. So they're minor characters. I don't have that much of an issue of them being minor characters, but what I think a lot of people have an issue with is in Goblet of Fire, in the Yule Ball, when people were asking, like boys were asking girls out on dates to get to the Yule Ball. The thing with the Patil twins was no one asked them until it was Harry and Ron's last resort. So not only did Harry and Ron use them as a very last resort, but no one else also asked them. So that was also, I think, a huge... It's something you don't really realize, and then when someone puts it out there, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, it's like putting on goggles for the first time. You're just like, whoa, I'm seeing things in a totally different light. Yeah. Gracious.
Sometimes I do think about it. I don't find that much of an issue with it, because even during my own prom, no one asked me. I had to ask someone. That's fine. But so in that regard, I could like relate to the Patil twins. So like now when I'm much older and in my almost mid-20s, and I'm thinking about these like very real issues, it was something
it pops up. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
But that's what's so good about this stuff. You bring it up and then it changes, it resets the way you think about these certain type of topics or situations. And that's what's so good about it. So thank you for bringing it up, because I didn't even thought about it like that, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. I think it was wonderful. It's very important to talk about these issues, whether it's in relation to Blacks or Hispanics, Latinos, Asians, whatever it is. If you're a person of color, it's important to talk about these issues and ensure that the oppression that has lasted for so many years does not happen in the future, so that our kids and their kids can have a better future, hopefully.
That's the hope. Starts with us.
So that's it for the discussion/interview. I think it's time we move on to the Fiendfyre segment.
Okay. I'm about to fail.
All right. I made a mistake with Geeta last time. I gave her too short of a time limit. So instead of 25 seconds, I'm going to give you 1 whole minute to answer 3 questions.
I don't think it'll make a difference, but okay.
All right. Okay. Ready?
I think so. Let's go.
All right. Question 1. What position did Angelina Johnson play in the Gryffindor Quidditch team?
She wasn't a seeker. Oh, man.
All right. She was either a beater or a chaser.
Chaser.
Correct. Okay.
Okay. Jason, yeah. Okay.
Who
One of
was
you definitely wasn't a beater. I knew that one. Because I was like, wait, I wanted to be a beater, but I was like, no, that's not a position for her. Okay.
All right.
All right. One.
Who was Dean Thomas dating in Half-Blood Prince?
Oh,
This is in the movie.
yeah. Jenny.
Yes, correct.
Jenny, my girl.
Yeah.
But she knows. I'm sorry. She knows.
All right. Okay, this might be a little bit tough since
Okay.
yeah, okay. Blaze Zabini was
Mhm.
part of the Slughorn's Slug Club.
Okay.
Because he was related to someone famous. How was he related to this person?
Nephew.
No. It's an immediate relation, so it's like, okay, I'll give you options: father, sister, mother.
Wait. No.
Yeah.
No. I was thinking no, because I'm thinking about the tape. Okay. Mother.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I only read the books one time. I saw the movies 80,000 times.
Yeah, Blaze Zabini's mother was famous because she had married 7 different people, and they had all died mysteriously, and she took all of their gold. So that's why she was famous.
That's awesome. I mean, that's not good. But
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
All right.
God,
That's
love
the
it.
end of the Fiendfyre segment and the podcast for today. Thank you so much, James, for talking with me today, and hopefully we as creators can influence
Yes.
other people,
Yeah.
not just young, but hopefully old as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we can see a change in the future, hopefully.
Yeah. And thank Tejas, thank you for this. When you brought up the topic that you would be doing stuff like this in regards to podcasts, I was like, this is needed. This is needed, especially from a youthful perspective. And a lot of podcasters are bigger, older, and stuff. So especially in the Harry Potter world, bringing your perspective and stuff, and knowing some of the WooTubers and the people that we know off the jump, I think this could be a great way to open up dialogue and affect change in a small niche that we are in right now. So, you guys, subscribe, check out this podcast for sure. He's bringing some fire. I love it.
Thank you, James. All right, James. That's it from me. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for watching. If you stayed all the way till the very end, I'm extremely grateful for you. You guys are amazing. I would just like to reiterate all the points that James made as to how you can help in this situation. 1, learn to get out of your comfort zone and try to educate yourself as much as you can. 2, try to positively influence the people around you as much as you can as well. And 3, if you have the ability to do so, try your very best to make sure that your local laws change. Having these uncomfortable conversations is exactly what we need to do. The more we talk about these things, the more we get educated and the more we can help. Also, try to support as many content creators out there who are of color. I'll be leaving links to some of the people that I follow who are of color and who are making amazing content on the internet, including James himself, obviously, so please do subscribe to him and check out some of these other creators as well that I personally follow. Lastly, you can also help by donating because money talks. So I'll leave a couple of links in the description box down below so that you can check out. If you have the financial capability to do so, please do consider donating. That's it from me for today and this episode, so thank you so much again for watching if you stayed all the way to the very end. Stay tuned next week for another exciting episode of The Squibbler Show. Till then, stay safe and goodbye.